Welcome. We're doing a deep dive today based on quite a stack of recent sources you shared with us.
Yeah, definitely.
And we've been looking through headlines, seeing some major shifts, tensions across the country. Things like civil unrest, political power struggles, key court decisions, too.
It's a lot covering clashes, at multiple levels of power.
Right.
Our goal here is really to pull out the most important takeaways for you, kind of cut through the noise so you can quickly get a handle on what's going on and why it matters.
Exactly. Okay, so let's unpack this. We'll start with the situation escalating out in Los Angeles, then look at these planned nationwide protests, and then get into some pretty critical updates from the Supreme Court.
Sounds like a plan.
First up, L.A. The source is showing, 5 straight days now of pretty intense protests, started by federal ICE raids.
That's right. And the big development is President Trump's response. He deployed a significant federal presence.
Yeah, I saw the numbers, 4,000 National Guard troops and 700 Marines.
Exactly. Marines, too. And that immediately, sparked this fierce clash with California's leadership.
Governor Newsom, right? He didn't hold back.
No, he called the deployment an abuse of power. Pretty strong words. And Mayor Bass in L.A. put that strict curfew in place downtown, 8 p.m. to 6 a.m.
And it's not just a war of words. It actually hit the courts pretty fast.
Right. Newsom filed an emergency request. He asked a federal judge to halt the deployment. The argument was basically a violation of state sovereignty.
But that initial request was turned down.
It was, yeah. Though there's a hearing still scheduled for Thursday, and you probably saw those viral images of guard troops sleeping on the floor.
Oh, yeah.
Newsom publicly slammed that, which just added fuel to the legal and political fire.
So this federal approach, bringing in active duty Marines, it feels like it's really highlighting that whole debate.
Definitely. Federal versus state authority. It's bigger than just LA now. It's sort of a constitutional question playing out very publicly.
Okay, so building on that tension, that federal action and the public reaction in LA, we're also seeing plans for dissent, like nationwide.
Yeah, that's right. The sources mention over 1,500 counter-protests being planned across the U.S. For June 14th, they're calling it No King's Day.
No King's Day, okay. And what's the timing on that? It's specific, right?
It is. It's specifically timed to oppose President Trump's upcoming military parade. That parade's meant to celebrate the U.S. Army's 250th anniversary.
Oh.
But organizers are voicing concerns. They feel such a huge military display in the Capitol. Well, it could feel less like a celebration and maybe more like an authoritarian spectacle, clashing with democratic norms.
So it's a very deliberate, widespread counter-movement targeting a specific federal event and what it symbolizes.
Exactly. It raises questions about how citizens mobilize against what they perceive as displays of centralized power, using public demonstration to make a specific political point on a set date.
Right. Okay, now, shifting gears a bit,
Right.
From the streets to the courts. The Supreme Court's been active.
Very active.
Let's talk Ames v. Ohio DSS, Department of Social Services. Unanimous ruling. Big civil rights implication here.
Huge. Yeah, the court ruled that Title VII standards, that's the main federal law against employment discrimination, have to apply equally. Doesn't matter if the plaintiff is from a majority or minority group.
So essentially it ends what some call reverse discrimination barriers.
Pretty much.
Well,
Makes it clear. If you believe you faced discrimination in hiring or promotion based on protected characteristics, your case gets evaluated under the same standards, even if you're part of a, quote, majority group.
that's a really concrete change in how these claims might proceed. They also weighed in on regulatory power, something about environmental reviews.
Yes, and the sources suggest this could significantly streamline approvals for big infrastructure projects.
How so?
Well, the ruling seems to limit the scope of those environmental assessments. Proponents argue, it cuts down delays and costs.
Okay, faster project.
Right. But environmental groups are worried. They fear it could weaken crucial oversight, maybe limit public input during the review. So maybe a win for developers, but potential environmental trade-offs.
Gotcha. And they also granted that 60-day extension for challenges to net neutrality rules.
That's right. Specifically challenges around how the FCC classified broadband internet. And they added 4 new cases for the next term, things touching on the death penalty, sentencing guidelines.
So if you zoom out, the court is actively reshaping things across the board.
Absolutely. Individual civil rights, internet regulation, how big projects get built, the justice system itself. It's broad.
Okay, so let's try and tie this together. We've covered the volatile situation in LA, these planned nationwide protests against a federal event, and then these key rulings from the Supreme Court.
What's really striking, I think, is seeing how interconnected it all is. Federal actions like troop deployments or parades, they spark state-level responses and fuel nationwide public protests.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you have the Supreme Court making these decisions that are redrawing the lines for everything from employment law to infrastructure.
It's all linked, definitely. So here's maybe a final thought for you listening to consider. Given how fast things are moving, the significance of these developments, especially these public clashes between federal and state power, and these shifts in legal interpretation from the court, how does paying attention to the specifics like the number of troops, the legal basis for a ruling, the target of a protest, how does that help you navigate and maybe understand the bigger forces shaping events around you?
It lets you get beyond just the headline, right? Start seeing the underlying power dynamics, the legal framework shifting, and how organized public reaction is actually driving change.
Something to definitely keep exploring.